President Trump says the governor's pause on data centers is a mistake. What it means as the industry pushes to expand. Details on today's Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm Angela Kocherga in El Paso. Supporters of the state takeover of Houston Public Schools tout it as a success for overall student achievement. But critics say it's come at the expense of some high-achieving students. What do the numbers tell us? Plus, does a strategy for managing rapid economic growth in North Texas offer lessons for other regions when it comes to development? And a bar celebrating goth music and culture turns 25 in Austin. All that and more just ahead on the Texas Standard. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this 10th day of August 2026. So glad you can spend part of your Monday with us. Much has been made of the divisive political climate in the state, but there's one issue that many Texans seem to have concerns about: the rapid expansion of data centers across the state. The backlash has come in areas near big cities and small towns and rural areas. The issues range from lost farmland to noise pollution, worries about water to energy costs. And both Republican and Democratic voters in the state share similar apprehension about the massive facilities. Governor Greg Abbott has put a pause on any new data centers until Texas regulators complete a review of their energy and water use. Now, President Trump has weighed in, and in an interview with Punchbowl News a few days ago, Trump called Abbott's decision a mistake. For more on what that means for the expansion of data centers in Texas and other states, we're joined by Taylor Goldenstein, an enterprise and investigative reporter for the Texas Tribune. Taylor, welcome back to the Standard.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's go back to last week when Governor Abbott first issued this directive pausing development of data centers in Texas. What did he say, and what are the details?
Right. So the governor is going forward with an industry-wide pause until he can audit, or I guess the state agencies can audit these data center companies, asking for a variety of different types of information, including how much water and power they're going to be using, what kind of financial assistance they might be getting, with who their ownership is, a whole bunch of details that he's hoping that they will send to the state.
Well, what else do we know about the reasoning and timing behind Abbott's order?
That's a great question. In recent weeks, we've had some interim hearings at the legislature, and lawmakers have pressed these data center companies because they have been asked to submit responses to state agencies-led surveys, and the response rate has been abysmal, and they have been criticized for that low response rate. And that's actually what Abbott has been citing in talking about doing this pause, is that low response rate makes it more difficult for the state to plan.
So after that order was discussed by Abbott, President Trump came out and questioned the move. What did he say?
Right. He essentially said that it seemed like in making this move that Texas was, quote, sort of against data centers. And he called it a mistake because he feels like when data centers want to come to a community, that brings in a lot of money.
Well, has the governor responded or changed course on this moratorium on data centers?
Yeah, we reached out to Abbott's office, and he again pointed to that low survey response rate, saying that less than 10% had responded to their requests. And he essentially said that he is putting Texans first and wanting to see that information before they make any kind of decisions.
Well, we also heard from outgoing Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller, and according to reporting by your colleague Jamie Lozano Carver, he had words of warning for fellow Republicans over data centers. What did he have to say?
Right. He's concerned that this could have effects for Republicans in the upcoming general. It's a big election this year. We know in a midterm, the party that's not in power already has the upper hand, and he's concerned that the data center issue, which we've seen, as a bipartisan issue, will end up as a backlash for Republicans.
So, what are you keeping an eye on when it comes to this debate over data centers? And do you think it will play a big part in the midterms?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say just because it's such a new issue. But if the interim hearings have been any kind of indication, we are seeing a lot of attention on this issue. And the Texas House Speaker, Dustin Burrows, and the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, have made clear that these are priorities for them, as well as obviously the governor. So we know that this will kind of dominate the conversation in the session. And I have to think that that translates to the election. And it's really just a question of, are these Republican, mostly rural area voters where these data centers are coming in? And, is this going to be an issue that brings them to the polls?
We've been speaking with Taylor Goldenstein with the Texas Tribune, and we'll link to her latest at texasstandard.org. Taylor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Amazon has big plans to expand statewide. In West Texas, the company recently acquired a huge stretch of land in Pecos County for a massive data center campus. Although with the governor's pause, it's not clear how quickly that project will move forward. In Austin, Amazon is looking to develop property near the city's airport. When you look at it on a map, the land looks like the silhouette of a dog's head. And that property is set to be the site of a massive mixed-use development anchored by Amazon. KUT's Luz Moreno Lozano talked to some neighborhood residents about what they think of the plan.
Lee Edwards has lived on Hergott's Lane for nearly 2 decades. His property backs up to the Colorado River. He has direct access to the water. It's the reason he moved to the area.
Yeah, it is right there, the river. This is a river neighborhood, a river community. We're very identified with the nature here, the animals, the river, the whole thing.
It's surprisingly rural considering how close it is to 183 and the airport. There's trees and wildflowers, bobcats and deer around the land. Edwards says it's unlike any neighborhood he's lived in before.
Which is like, hey, I've got my apartment in my house, and we have neighbors. This is nice. All that is true, but there's this whole other thing going on. It's a special and unique neighborhood.
Gary Tong lives just a few doors down from Edwards. He's been here for 5 years.
It's a quiet lifestyle. It's kind of like you're in the middle of nowhere, but you're in Austin. And just the people, the neighbors are amazing. The wildlife is amazing. It's just a crazy cool place to live.
Edwards is president of the Southeast Colorado River Neighborhood Association. Both he and Tong fear that their little slice of paradise will be lost without a proper plan to develop the Dog's Head. Last month, the Austin City Council signed off on a 2,600-acre development for the site. It includes housing, retail and office space, and some green space. Amazon's robotics division will be the property's biggest tenant. But the project was approved with very little public input, including from neighbors. That's where they say the city failed them.
The way that this has been done has been shocking.
Yeah.
The fact that it's being done, not shocking at all. Nobody in our entire neighborhood association has ever been opposed to development or this development. It's how it's being done that is our entire issue.
Neighbors didn't learn about the project until just 2 days before the city council was set to annex the site and enter into an agreement with the developer. And it wasn't because the city told them. Edwards found out from a friend who'd seen it on the council's agenda.
We heard on a Tuesday, May 19th, we had a neighborhood association meeting the next day, and we went to speak at city council the next day. So they've had us playing catch up the whole time. And as Garrett said, seems like that was likely intentional.
Last month, the attorney for the developer said this project has been in the works for several years. City officials have not explained why residents weren't part of the process, but said the quick decision-making was about securing a deal with Amazon. Tung says all the neighbors want is to be kept in the loop about what's going on.
It would be nice to have some sort of input into what goes into the Dog's Head. I think that's typically how it works.
He says the neighbors also want a clearer understanding about how the project is going to affect traffic and the river. Austin City Councilmember Jose Velasquez says he's aware of those concerns and says he's working to resolve them. He voted against the project last month.
I feel we could have done better, and we're going to be working to ensure that when we have major developments like this, that there's a better process to how we communicate with the community, because people, again, should never feel like things are happening to them. They should feel like they're happening with them.
The Hergott's Lane neighborhood is small. Edwards can name most of his neighbors. He says all he's trying to do is protect them and make sure the project is developed well.
I think developing this well respects the environment and respects the existing neighborhoods.
I think it means something that benefits the community, that the community can get utility out of, whether that's housing or like thought out retail or whatever it is, but it's not heavy industry and data centers and all these companies and industries that make such bad neighbors.
Work has already started on the project, but there are still several more decisions ahead. Velasquez says neighbors will be part of the process moving forward. The development is not expected to get final approval until next year. I'm Luz Moreno Lozano in Austin.
Audience and engagement editor Wells Dunbar with the Talk of Texas joins us now. Hi, Wells.
Hi, Angela. Great to be with you. Fascinating question this week. What are the secret rules of Texas? It's the Talk of Texas, inspired by a Reddit thread I found on r/Texas. Now, this was posted by a foreign visitor to our fair state, asking about the unwritten rules that come with a visit to Texas, or in the Redditor's words, the silly but important rules no one tells you about. And there are plenty of examples in the thread. The top-rated comment, I think most of us can empathize with this. Watch your speed going through small towns. Police love to wait for people just entering town who don't recognize the speed limit has dropped. More sobering suggestion: realize that anyone could be legally carrying a gun. And a decidedly less serious one: don't be insulted if you're called ma'am, miss, sir, or another term that might be considered pejorative in other states. They're being polite. Well, we want to hear your suggestions as well. We're already hearing from plenty of people on Facebook, and we're also sharing the query on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Reddit, of course. Search us out there if you're an active Redditor. Just search for Texas Standard. But better yet, record your thoughts, your secret Texas rules, if you will, at texasstandard.org/talk so we can share it on the air. We're going to be compiling these all week and sharing what we hear from everyone come this Friday. And of course, I'll be back with plenty more of these suggestions, hidden secret Texas rules, if you will, that we're already getting from our friends and listeners on the show. Like I said, I'll be back with those later on in the program, Angela.
Love it, Wells. Thank you. Still ahead on the Standard, energy expert Matt Smith with the latest on Iran, Texas energy producers, and prices at the pump.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Half Price Books, a Texas-bred new and used bookstore, proudly supporting public media and sustainability by keeping books, music, and other media in circulation. Store locations and more information at hpb.com. Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Casa. For a child in foster care, small moments today can have a big impact tomorrow. More on how lending time and support can help make a difference at becomeacasa.org.
A note here for our podcast listeners. At this time on our broadcast, we usually hear our segment This Week in Texas Music History. Unfortunately, we can't play it here on our podcast because of issues with music streaming rights. However, you can find it over at texasstandard.org or check out a version on Texas Standard's Facebook or Instagram page. And as always, we encourage you to listen to the Texas Standard every weekday on your local public radio station.
And you're listening to the Texas Standard. The Texas economy expanded to a record $2.9 trillion in 2025. That's according to the governor's office. The massive economic power of the state is something we talk about a lot here on the Standard. And how to manage and plan for all that growth is something officials are always evaluating. Representatives from 4 cities in Tarrant County came together recently to discuss strategies for growing their local economies. Eric Garcia has been following this. He's a senior business reporter at the Fort Worth Report. Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the cities we're talking about here are Arlington, Mansfield, Keller, and Haltom City. What was the goal of this economic development forum?
The goal is to look at job creation. This was part of a economic development forum that Workforce Solutions for Tarrant County had on July 30th in Arlington. But the intent is to look at ways to create jobs, and also with the focus on how cities are specifically targeting specific types of companies for their cities.
Well, let's talk about that, because I understand many of these cities are over 90% built out. So how are they planning on attracting companies that want large campuses?
Well, they do admit that it is a difficult endeavor to do that. Arlington, for example, with 400,000 residents, is about 95% built out. If you're familiar with Dallas-Fort Worth, this city is smack in between Dallas and Fort Worth, and has been a huge bedroom community for many years, and includes attractions like the Texas Rangers stadiums, AT&T Stadium. But what they're really doing over there is not looking necessarily for the next big shiny thing. They're looking for something that can fit into their growing tax base. So they're looking at energy, bioscience, aerospace, and film and TV production.
Now, how about these other cities? Do they have more of an opportunity to expand and annex if needed?
Some of them do, some of them don't. For example, Haltom City, which is a lot closer to Fort Worth, they only have 250 acres of land available for development.
Wow.
They're mostly built out. They're looking at some other opportunities to create economic development, possibly with a rail stop of the Tex Rail system that Trinity Metro does here in Fort Worth. But they really are mostly built out. Keller, for example, is another city in Tarrant County, and that is 98% built out. They've been looking to increase their daytime population, since many of their residents tend to leave the city to go to jobs in other cities.
Oh, and how about Mansfield? It's the one we didn't mention.
Yeah, Mansfield is Arlington's neighbor to the south, and that city is unlike the others that I've mentioned. It has a lot more space, and it's really growing into once rural parts of the Metroplex up here. But they are looking at a multitude of stuff that they can put in, including a permanent cottage market of small offices. They've increased their sports facilities. There's a lot of housing developments going in, so they're looking for manufacturing jobs to keep people in the city and grow that tax base.
I mean, these are pretty specific needs for this, North Texas area, but are there strategies that other economic regions across Texas could take from how they've grown?
Well, certainly as growth is all over the state, there are similarities in the large metro areas of what cities are looking for and how they're growing. A lot of them are looking for manufacturing jobs, bioscience, architectural jobs, engineering, medicine. Many of those jobs are still in heavy demand, and those are certainly among the ones that they're looking for.
Interesting. Now, what about the big challenges? I mean, is it keeping folks in town to save on commutes? I mean, do they need to grow? What is the level of urgency here?
I guess because they are looking for ways to grow the tax base. They're also looking for opportunities to keep a daytime population, because as you know, Texas is quite spread out, and Dallas-Fort Worth is as well. And so many people in the outer suburbs tend to drive into the big cities for jobs, or to another city, maybe across town. So as Dallas-Fort Worth grows, we're expecting about 4 million people within the next 25 years. So that's going to have a huge effect on infrastructure, and especially roads.
Eric Garcia is a senior business reporter at the Fort Worth Report. Eric, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Round Rock ISD Virtual Academy, offering virtual and hybrid classes for self-motivated high schoolers throughout Texas, with more than 50 courses, including advanced placement and dual credit. roundrockisd.org/virtual academy.
From the Texas Newsroom, I'm Matt Harrop. New polling data by Texas A&M shows Democrat James Tallarico leading his Republican U.S. Senate opponent Ken Paxton by 4 points. It's the fourth poll showing similar results released in the past week. Both candidates were on the campaign trail this weekend. Texas Public Radio's David Martin Davies reports Paxton received mixed results during a stop in San Antonio.
Paxton appeared at the Angry Elephant Bar Saturday morning and spoke to a mostly cheering crowd. However, several hecklers interrupted his speech as Paxton criticized his Democratic opponent, James Tallarico, including a disruptor who shouted that Paxton cheated on his wife.
He also said that you cannot be a Christian and support the oil and gas industry. Now, I think that's in Leviticus, I think. And then, of course, he's been anti-USA.
Paxton and his wife, Texas State Senator Angela Paxton, are seeking a divorce after 38 years of marriage. Angela Paxton filed for the divorce last year, citing adultery and biblical grounds. I'm David Martin Davies in San Antonio.
Tallarico was in the Houston area over the weekend speaking to supporters on the campus of San Jacinto College.
It is time to repeal the big, ugly bills, tax breaks for the top 1%. And give that $1 trillion to the middle class.
The poll from Texas A&M shows strong headwinds for Republicans as the races for governor and lieutenant governor are within 2 points of each other. Corpus Christi Mayor Paulette Guajardo has been suspended and reprimanded after a controversial hearing that could have had her removed from office. Our Rob Boskamp reports.
A city council tribunal found Guajardo guilty on all 3 charges levied against her. She will be under a 30-day suspension from office upon findings by the council that she committed, quote, misconduct, malfeasance, incompetence, or inability or willful neglect of performance, unquote, related to a tax incentive agreement for development of a downtown hotel project. She was formally reprimanded for perjury during a deposition related to a lawsuit against the city over the agreement. She was also found guilty of breaking confidentiality of a Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation meeting. Votes to remove the mayor from office for the charges did not pass. The verdict follows 4 days of removal proceedings over the past 2 weeks. Local, state, and federal investigations found no legal wrongdoing, but that is not needed in the city charter to have the mayor removed from office. Guajardo becomes the first mayor in Corpus Christi history to be suspended. It is not yet known when the suspension will begin. I'm Rob Boskamp in Corpus Christi.
And I'm Matt Harrop in the Texas Newsroom.
You're listening to statewide news from public radio stations across Texas. This coverage is only possible because of support from listeners like you. You can help sustain and grow Texas news coverage by donating to your local public radio station today.
33 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. I'm Lucio Vasquez. Supporters of the state takeover of Houston Public Schools tout the successes of the effort, praising higher school accountability ratings and student outcomes. But some critics say the numbers are misleading and have resulted in some high-achieving students being held back as a way to improve a poor-performing school's numbers. Along with Ruth Kravitz, Daniel Dower wrote about the contradictions for the Texas Observer. Daniel, welcome to the Standard.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So can you explain the connection between accountability ratings and individual student performance in low-performing schools?
Sure. So Texas's academic accountability system rates every school and district annually using a letter grade system, right? Every school, every district is assigned a grade A through F based on a few different indicators. For grades 3 through 8, so elementary and middle school campuses, ratings are almost entirely determined by student performance on state standardized exams, the STAR tests. In high school, however, those STAR tests are only part of the equation. High schools are also assigned ratings based on high school graduation rates, as well as what the state defines as college, career, and military readiness, or CCMR. When a school gets a letter grade rating, it's based on a combination, for a high school anyway, a combination of those different indicators. They're all factored into that score.
So how has all of this played out in Houston's new educational system, or NES, high schools, and why those schools specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are 16 NES identified high schools in Houston ISD, and about half of Houston ISD's campuses, 130 of them overall, have been identified as new education system or NES schools. At the high schools, we've seen some changes in which students are taking which courses during which years that kind of make those NES schools stand out, not only in comparison to non-NES high schools within HISD, but in comparison to high schools across the state of Texas. So Ruth and I wrote a bit about what we've seen happen at the 11th grade level for math. So typically in the state of Texas and in the rest of Houston ISD, most 11th graders take as their math course either Algebra 2 or a more advanced math course if they've already taken Algebra 2 before their 11th grade year. At NES high schools, those 16 high schools in Houston, almost half, about 48% of all 11th graders at the NES high schools were removed from Algebra 2 and instead placed in a course called Algebraic Reasoning. This is a course that uses a college prep curriculum called Texas College Bridge. And the way that Texas's CCMR rating system is designed, students are awarded a point for college readiness just for enrolling and completing in this course, even if they don't pass the TSI assessment, the state standardized assessment of college readiness that they take at the end of the course.
Gotcha. And you profile a student who was taking advanced math classes but found herself in a remedial class under the state takeover of HISD. Tell us about Aubrey.
Yeah, so Aubrey is a student in HISD who had completed actually an on-level math pathway. She was taking Algebra 1, a pre-AP course, an Algebra 1 course her ninth grade year. And when she got to her 11th grade year, she was set and had started the school year enrolled in an Algebra 2 course for 11th grade, which is the on-level math course that students typically take in the sequence of math courses in Texas. A few weeks into the school year, Aubrey and thousands of other students were notified that their schedule had been changed and they had been removed from Algebra 2 and instead placed in this algebraic reasoning course. When Aubrey and her mother went to the school and asked for a movement back into the Algebra 2 course, she was initially denied. And it took months of lobbying, including by some pretty powerful individuals, in order to get Aubrey back into that class that she was originally assigned to, that on-level Algebra 2 course. But for thousands of other students across HISD's NES high schools, they remained in that algebraic reasoning course. Their opportunity to take Algebra 2 is delayed till their 12th grade year.
And you write that the Texas College Bridge program, which allowed TEA to boost accountability ratings, has been phased out after a great deal of criticism from education experts. Do HISD students that want to go to college now have a better pathway to college?
Yeah, we actually know a lot of pretty successful and well-established pathways for college readiness, and many of these exist in HISD high schools, right? So students can take advanced placement courses, they can take dual credit courses, they can complete industry-based certifications. These are well-established pathways to college and career readiness that are supported by research, right? The problem is that this Texas College Bridge course, the research shows that not only does it offer a false promise of college readiness, actually the research shows that it has a net negative effect on students' college readiness relative to their peers who complete no CCMR indicator at all. And I think that's part of the reason why TEA has decided to phase out the College Bridge course as a pathway for college readiness going forward, but it still exists this year.
Daniel Dower is a doctoral student in education policy and planning at the University of Texas at Austin. We'll have a link to his Texas Observer story at texasstandard.org. Daniel, thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you so much.
Support for Texas Standard comes from HEB and the My HEB app, which is available for download, and shopping fresh departments like seafood, produce, bakery, and deli, and scheduling curbside pickup or home delivery. More at heb.com.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Angela Kocherga. Texas has had an outsized influence on many music genres, from country to the blues. In recent decades, Texas has also become an incubator for goth bands. Twin Tribes, Rose Garden, Funeral Party, and Urban Heat all got their start in the Lone Star State. Alongside them, the goth and dark wave subculture has grown to support several businesses. In Austin, a goth bar is celebrating its 25th year. The Texas Standard's Charlie Sharp has the story.
I'm outside Elysium, an alt bar in Austin's Red River district. Heat from the 100-degree day radiates off the sidewalk. It's a Sunday a little before 10, and already dozens of patrons walk past me and into the pulsing music. Not everyone here embodies the big-haired trad goths from Hollywood. I see lacy sundresses, battle jackets, muscle tees, and jorts. It's 80s night, and echoing from around the blind corner is Michael Jackson and Depeche Mode. So, what actually is goth, and why are Texans flocking to this decades-old subculture? Elysium's owner, John Wickman, says that while he identifies as goth, the label is somewhat amorphous.
There's a running joke in the subculture that in order to truly be goth, you have to deny that you are goth. Bauhaus, The Cure, Susie Sue, all those bands, if they don't know, we're not goth, which just basically means they're goth.
Sebastian Nolfo, a musician and owner of the Austin store Bloody Rose Boutique, says that while goth starts with the music, the range is quite vast.
You have the traditional goths, which are into Bauhaus and to the first wave of gothic music and Susie and the Banshees and stuff, which crossed over from punk rock. And then it's expanded to the mall goths and the cyber goths. So you have people listen to metal and pop music, and they're all goths. You have goths who listen to ABBA.
Cassandra Davis runs Secret October.
To me, goth is about the music. That's the number one thing. Some people come at it from literature, some people come at it through movies, and some from just the fashion or just the makeup. But to me, it is 100% the music.
But you can't go dancing if you don't have anything to wear. Down at Cassandra Davis's clothing store, Secret October, sheer black curtains with little bats are the only thing keeping the punishing Texas sun at bay. Inside, at least a dozen shoppers browse through a menagerie of clothes, from Victorian poet shirts to trip pants.
I really like the fashion. I love the big hair, and in the 80s I had the big Robert Smith hair, but honestly now I'm old and tired and lazy and I don't have time to spend 2 hours doing my hair every day, and it is too hot to wear makeup. Although I've never been good at makeup anyway, but I still wear all black, and I love the gothic imagery. I don't even know why.
Towards the front of the store, Davis has racks of studs, O-rings, and sewing supplies.
The OG goth has a lot of punk rock in it, and it was all about making your own thing. And back in the 80s and even most of the 90s, you could not just go and buy a lot of this stuff. Even though there are certain styles everyone does, you don't want to look like a clone and just look like you just went online to Temu and bought the goth collection or whatever and look like everyone else. You want to put your own stuff in there.
So to recap, goth is a music subculture, but it doesn't have one specific sound. Goth doesn't have one kind of look, but it has thriving clothing stores that cater specifically to the subculture. Maybe to understand goth in Texas, I need to look at how it got here.
Oh, it's been a while.
I would say that starting back in the 80s, we used to have these things called teen clubs. So it was that sort of mix with sort of the clubbing scene that I grew up in my teenage years. And just really people who felt free expressing themselves, and the whole darker aesthetic, some of the music.
Lisa Santacoy, better known in the scene as Bunny Voodoo, runs Blood Over Texas, which produces horror events in Central Texas. Santacoy said that in the past 20 years, the subculture has seen an explosion of activity online, starting first on platforms like MySpace before migrating to Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr.
In this community, people want to, they're very introverts. Online nowadays, you get lost in a lot of stuff. So as far as being digital, it's just hard to find people. And then in person, it's much calmer. But you just have to get people out. That's the hardest part, is to get people to get together.
From what I heard, folks in the scene are getting out, especially after the pandemic.
I think it's actually a really good size right now. It changes is the thing. I moved here in 1998, and when I first moved here, it was vibrant, and that was the big goth bar, Elysium.
Nolfo says goth is now spanning generations.
It's really cool and vibrant here, how diverse the scene is. And even here at the store, I've got customers who are in their 50s and 60s coming in with their teenage and tween and younger kids shopping together. And it's like whole goth families. I've even had goth grandmothers with their goth moms and the goth kids come in.
And there are goth hotspots all throughout Texas. Davis told me of a flourishing scene in San Antonio.
Some of my favorite DJs come from there. I don't know what is in the water there, but they just, the DJs there are incredible. And there's a new place called Oh Death there, a new bar that's having a lot of cool live bands.
Houston's home to Numbers, which has been around for 47 years. Its first live band was the Goth Essential, Susie and the Banshees. Elysium owner John Wickman says Dallas has its scene too.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the church in Dallas. The church has been around for quite a while. They just recently lost their original location, which was beautiful, but they're still going.
From the Hemlock Fox Bar in Denton to the band Twin Tribes from Brownsville, almost everywhere there's Texans, there's goths. And when I asked what it's like to be a goth in a state that regularly hits the 100s, I was generally met with laughs.
There is no such thing as being cool and dressing goth. It doesn't matter. It's so hot out, it doesn't even matter. So you just suffer. But usually it's the t-shirts. T-shirts is what does it. I'm all about the flowy hippie skirts with a t-shirt, and I guess like the trip pants, they're big and baggy, so it's flowy, so it lets you get some airflow.
I don't dress for the weather. I dress to make myself feel good. And for a lot of goths, it's the same. You see us wearing black jeans and black t-shirts or black shorts or whatever. It doesn't matter. So the only difference for a lot of people is whether they carry a parasol or not, because to keep themselves shaded.
There's a reason Texans are still coming to the scene despite the heat.
I think there definitely is a resurgence in the goth subculture. More people are interested in it now, probably than ever before.
You know, we all have similar passions and interests, and so there's a very big inclusivity part of it. And that's also kind of a side note, you know, the kind of, you know, weirdos or people that are, you know, alternative or whatever word you want to use. This is a safe space for them. You know, you need to have a sense of community where you're accepted and not judged.
In Texas, the goth subculture remains undead. In Austin, I'm Charlie Sharp for the Texas Standard.
This is the Texas Standard. I'm Angela Kocherga. As the war in the Middle East drags on, so does uncertainty in the energy industry. Iran recently laid out a list of the country's demands in order to reopen the vital Strait of Hormuz. But passage through the strait is not the only variable affecting prices at the pump. For more, we're joined by Matt Smith, lead energy analyst at Kepler. Matt, welcome back to the Standard.
Thanks, Angela.
Well, what is the latest with the Strait of Hormuz, both in terms of current traffic and the possible Iran-Oman deal?
Traffic is still subdued, and you know, we're into the 6th month of this now, so you're still getting cargoes that are leaving. Traffic is about maybe 10 to 15 tankers going either way, whereas pre-conflict that was above 100. We do have some very large crude carriers, the biggest tankers that are passing through, but they're trying to do it with their transponders switched off so they don't get seen. So that's the situation with the Strait of Hormuz. Not too much changing on that side of things, although the Iran-Oman deal would change things up pretty strongly. The that's close to being done. But the thing is, Angela, that's an interim solution. It's a temporary deal for managing the traffic through the Strait. It's by no means reopening the Strait of Hormuz there. It's essentially Iran being able to govern who comes in and who goes out of there. And so this is separate from formal negotiations between Iran and the US. And actually, there's no direct talks between Iran and the US right now.
Well, what's happening in the Red Sea? Is that becoming another bad choke point?
It is, yeah. The thing is, it is different from the Strait of Hormuz, though, in that it is being governed, not closed. The southern exit is Bab el-Mandeb, and the Houthis, who are a proxy for Iran, threaten to target any Saudi material, any Saudi crude or products that are passing through Bab el-Mandeb. So we've seen those really drop off to virtually nothing now. That said, you still see a lot of Russian crude that heads south through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal there. In the other direction, you see Indian refined products such as jet fuel, gasoline, diesel going the other way. So it's a different situation to what we're seeing with the Strait of Hormuz. So we are seeing a lot more kind of traffic going through there, maybe 25 tankers, something like that. It's just the Saudi stuff that's getting stopped.
Well, what about the exports of crude and other petroleum products out of Saudi Arabia? They're all being stopped, or some's trickling through?
So what they have to do, they load about midway up through the Red Sea there. So they're having to head north rather than south, which they've been doing for the last couple of months with the Strait of Hormuz being closed. Saudi's been in a good situation in that it's been able to reroute its crude across on a pipeline away from the Mideast Gulf to avoid the Strait of Hormuz, to be able to get out of Bab el-Mandeb there. Now that has been kind of blocked off basically, but they are able to get those barrels out through the Suez Canal. But this is just one more disruption, Angela, in a series of major disruptions for the oil market. And so we're seeing that reflected through into prices, you know.
Well, what about prices at the pump?
Yeah, well, we're at $4 a gallon on the national average. Texas, fortunately, is typically always lower than that, so it's about $3.55. So it's not in the realms of demand destruction, although compared to where it was this time last year, it's way higher, about 75 cents a gallon higher. So it's definitely impacting people's pocketbooks. They're feeling that pain there, but it's actually much worse on the diesel side of things. Because we're lacking getting a lot of the oil out of the Middle East, which helps to produce a lot of diesel. Diesel prices have really kind of skyrocketed, and so that's being reflected through into all of our groceries and goods that are being moved around the US on 18-wheelers.
Well, in the little time we have, it sounds like this is positive for Texas oil producers. Is that the case?
Yeah, so higher prices here is a good thing for US producers, and you're seeing that reflected through into the oil rig count here. So now it's up to the highest since May 2025. It's up over 11% just in the last 3.5 months, and basically that increase has all happened in Texas and basically the Permian Basin. So it is that's one positive to take out this situation. It is good for the US and Texas oil industry.
We've been speaking to Matt Smith, lead energy analyst at Kepler. Matt, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Angela.
And you're listening to the Texas Standard. Our audience and engagement editor, Wells Dunbar, is back again. Hi, Wells.
Hi, great to be with you as always, Angela. Well, what are the secret rules for living in Texas? Talking about this one again, shamelessly lifted from a Reddit thread. I saw it there and I thought this was so cool. What are the secret rules everyone knows about living in Texas? Things like, watching your speed driving through small towns, or not being surprised if someone calls you sir or ma'am. We want to hear your suggestions. We think this is a rich topic to explore, and we're getting some good suggestions coming in via the trusty Texas Standard Facebook page. Lots, we talked, just mentioned, watching for those speed traps. Lots of driving related rules out there. Anthony Dallas Gross-Close notes that the left lane is for people that can afford speeding tickets, not for people cruising at 10 miles per hour over. Definitely, yeah. If you're only going 10 over the speed limit, yeah, you need to get on over to the right there. Melanie Guthrie says, wave a thank you to other motorists for enabling you to change lanes, etc. Such a courteous lost art, it seems. Well, I'm doing my darndest to keep that alive, Angela. I don't know about you.
I do that.
Yeah, you seem. I get the feeling you seem like a courteous driver, Angela. I don't know what it is. Wendy Aarons, has a culinary tip here. If you ask for tea at a restaurant, it'll be iced. I wonder if that's ever happened to an out of state visitor, out of country visitor, perchance there. And of course, tea. Lots of tea topics to explore here. We're talking about, not so much a completely Texas thing, maybe more of a East Texas thing. I might get some comments about this, but when you order tea and you get a sweet tea, I don't think that's like a Texas-wide thing. I think it feels a little more Eastern for my taste. But if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear from folks out there. Meg Cochran says this about Texans: friendly banter is us sizing you up. Willie Nelson is our Lord and Savior. Yes, sir and ma'am go a long way. You can't dislike Tex-Mex, and be a good neighbor, but mind your business. Those are some fabulous unwritten rules there that I care for. And longtime listener and friend of the show, Robert Flood, here via Facebook as well, says, I learned early on that when a Texan says, well, bless your heart, it was not a blessing. Or as my late mother might say, trust me, it's no mitzvah, Bobby. I love that. So again, what are the unwritten rules here of being a Texan? We'd love to hear from you. So chime in wherever you find us via social media. But the best way to reach out is because we want to hear your pretty little voice. So go to texasstandard.org/talk so we can get that recording of you. We're going to compile all these, put it on the air on Friday. So again, reach out with your own unwritten Texas rule at texasstandard.org/talk. We would love to hear what you have to say.
Yes, thank you, Wells. We're out of time for today's program, but you can keep up with the news 24/7 at texasstandard.org. A big thanks to our summer interns, Portia Goins and Charlie Sharp, as they move on. We really appreciate you. From all of us at The Standard, thanks for listening. Hope you can join us again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Angela Kocherga, wishing you the very best from El Paso.
Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Wooldridge, Adrian Killam, and the George Huntington family.